In this week's episode of One Piece, the climactic battle between the Speedo-wearing cyborg Franky and the hard-boiled big baby Senor Pink finally begins. You want to know why this episode of One Piece is awesome? 5 words. Meow meow suplex, baby Buster! 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 That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this week's episode of One Piece was pretty manly. The final battle between Senor Pink and Franky began this week and will be concluded very shortly in the next episode. I really wish they would have finished it in this one, but honestly, there's an important reason for that, and that's because we got some Senor Pink backstory in this episode, which honestly, when I read this in the manga for the first time, I was shocked that we got it. I had no idea they were going to take the time to actually expand on the character of Senor Pink, one of the more goofier looking members of Don Quixote's crime family. And to be perfectly honest, after watching this episode, which I thought was done really well, I would have loved to have seen some more backstory on the other freakazoids from Doflamingo's crew. But before we get to all of the Franky Senor Pink stuff, there are some other cool things about this episode. One, Bellamy is just continuing to rock Luffy's world, and the action scene at the beginning looked really freaking awesome, especially how when he punches him, Luffy sort of gets stuck to his fist as he's constantly bouncing around the room. He really messes him up, and it's just got a lot of speed and impact behind it, so I really cannot wait to see how they're going to conclude that battle. Although, let's face it, we kind of all know how it's going to end. But don't worry, Bellamy, even if you lose, we'll still go to Dairy Queen. There's also another short scene with Princess Mancherry, who is still so just freaking adorable. I cannot stand it. She's like the cutest character from the entire series. And there's just a small scene with her acting all lazy, wanting to be carried by Leo, and that's because she has a crush on him. She treats everyone else nice. She hates him. Leo's oblivious to it. Never seen this joke before. Still, I have to admit, it's absolutely adorable. But enough of this cutesy crap, it's time for some hard-boiled manly action. Franky versus Senor Pink. They both get to display some really flashy and awesome attacks in this episode, and it all opens up with what we've seen before. Suplexes and punches. They've both done this to each other 30 different times, and now it's time to bring out their trump card. I loved the animation of Senor Pink grabbing Franky and then swimming across Dressrosa. That looked really cool and really fluid, especially just how the ground, whatever they touched, immediately would turn into like a water-like state. And Senor Pink drags Franky up a building, all the way up to a tower, jumps up in the air, and does that amazing suplex move, the Baby Buster. And it leaves a massive crater, a huge explosion. It's just pretty freaking great. However, being suplexed from the nosebleed section doesn't even affect Franky whatsoever. In fact, it sends him into a Terminator-like rage. Even his eye starts to glow red, which is just so freaking cool looking. And that's when he finally decides to hit Senor Pink with his Franky Iron Boxing, which is basically a glorified Franky Gatling punch. But it looks so awesome as he's doing it, as they're literally flying across the battlefield, as Senor Pink takes every punch like a freaking boss. He's hard-boiled! What's really cool about this backstory is we finally get to learn why Senor Pink dresses like a baby. The bonnet, the pacifier, the man diaper, it's all finally going to be revealed to the viewers. So, apparently in the past, while he was still a pirate, he met this young woman named Rushion, and he fell in love with her, they started a family, and they had a baby. A young baby by the name of Gimlet, who looked like a little Senor Pink. He even had the little curl, and he wore a pink bonnet. Now, the thing about their relationship is that Rushion had no idea that Senor Pink was a pirate. He kept that completely secret from her, and because of this, he was always off on missions doing who knows what. I'm sure it was badass and hard-boiled, but one time when he was gone, his son came down with a fever and died. Things managed to get darker when Senor Pink's wife has a mental breakdown and then suddenly runs out into a rainstorm where she gets caught in a mudslide. This is when she goes into a vegetative-like state where she's unconscious, and then Senor Pink is overcome with grief. He visits her over the course of months, seasons, possibly even years, doing everything in his power just to see her smile again. It's not until at the very end of the episode when, out of desperation, he puts on his son's bonnet, trying to remind his wife of really what their son was like and what he looked like, and trying to pay homage to him, and of course trying to desperately get a smile. When he thinks he hasn't succeeded, that's when she finally does smile, ending this week's episode, and probably drawing the man tears right out of you. this was a surprisingly well done backstory. I thought it was handled really well in the manga version with voice acting, color, and atmosphere. I think it's even better in the anime version. And it's just such a sad thing because it's at this point that you start to realize that he is going to begin to wear all of that stuff that like his son had in a way to sort of pay homage to him and to always remember what happened. It's a constant reminder of his past, and he carries it with him wherever he goes. Because Senor Pink is a hard-boiled son of a bitch. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of One Piece? Just a really fantastic episode right here. I'm a little disappointed they didn't add a little bit more to the fight, maybe some more fighting choreography, maybe some more special attacks, but still it adapted the manga version perfectly and there were some really cool scenes. The big Baby Buster suplex was awesome, especially the build-up to it when they're actually like swimming across the landscape. That looked really good. And of course Franky's big attack, the iron boxing at the end, also looked really devastating and awesome. I love the look of Franky, especially with the glowing red eye where half of his face is black. Like I said, it reminds me of the Terminator, and that's definitely what they're going for. He is kind of like the Terminator in many senses. He is a cyborg. Another thing that I really like about this episode, though, is that there's still some other scenes to chew on. The backstory of Senor Pink is handled well. You had the Tontada bits, which are actually really charming to me, and that's mostly because we've only been with Princess Mancherry for a long time, and I'm not bored with her character yet, especially because she's so freaking cute. And then, of course, you had all the stuff with Luffy and Bellamy, which is what we've seen before, but it was really well animated, so that's why I really appreciated that. What can I say? This was just a hard-boiled, action-packed episode with some pretty good animation and artwork, and the beginning of Senor Pink's backstory, which will be concluded next week, and then we're going to be moving on to the battle between Kyros, Diamante, Rebecca, Nico Robin, and it looks like it's going to be really exciting too, so let's get excited for that. But this episode right here, I thought it was really good. I think they could have added more action, and I would have liked a little bit more, but despite that, I think this was a solid episode of One Piece, which is one that I'm going to remember for a really long time, and one of the better Franky episodes that I've seen in a while. But Senor Pink was the real star of this episode. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5. I loved it. One Piece fans should definitely check it out. If you're reading the manga or watching the anime, check out this week's episode. You're gonna see something you like, I assure you. But before you guys leave today, I would love to hear your thoughts about this week's episode of One Piece, and you can tell me in the comment section below. Did you have a favorite attack scene? Was it the Baby Buster, Franky's big punching attack? What do you think of Senor Pink's backstory? And what do you want to see from the rest of the One Piece anime series? Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching my video. Make sure to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!